This trader turned $1,800 into almost $42,000 in just a day. Someone made one of the largest daily losses I have ever seen by losing $150,000 in just a day, and this trader is on a winning streak as he made $270,000 in the past 3 months. And we are starting off with an insane gain by All on Green 2020, who's up by 2,182% or $40,141.80 in just a day, pretty much turning $1,800 into almost $42k or multiplying his money more than 22 times overnight. And he's up by so much because he bought Union Pacific call options, 15 of them with a striking price at $222.50 and 38 of them with a striking price at $232.50, all of them expiring on July 28. The stock of the railroad holding company jumped up by a huge amount on July 26 because even though the company reported disappointing earnings, it announced a new CEO with a reputation for pushing down costs. Luckily, he sold shortly after this beautiful screenshot. Hedge funds love choo-choo trains and regards like choo-choo trains, so the play just made sense, although he later confessed that it was just a stupid guess that they announced a Wall Street darling the same day they would announce weak earnings. This was a slightly educated gamble that nobody was paying attention for. The news articles also kept pushing the guy that got the CEO spot. Looking at his all-time chart, we can see that this wasn't his first rodeo, as he was up to $214,000 in 2020 but then sadly lost it all, and he's still recovering from that loss as he's still down by 10%. Now he'll be picking up some 6 months till expiry calls so the new CEO can blast this thing to more than $290. Next, we have one of the largest daily losses I have ever seen by Vegetable Resource 204. He went for a 500k YOLO on PayPal puts but then lost $350,000 in just a day. And the story behind this trade is actually insane, because just about 2 weeks ago he was extremely bullish on PayPal and owned 479k in shares and 38k in calls with a striking price at $115 and expiration date on June 21st, 2024. PayPal was still sitting at 5-year lows and should recover with the economy as inflation cools down and consumer spending picks up again. So he'll be surprised if this isn't over $100 by the end of the year. Just 10 days after his initial post, he became even more bullish as he sold about 800 shares to buy more leaps, which increased his position in calls from 38k to 124k. At that point, his account was worth $547,138.78 and he was up on the all-time chart by more than 1,700% or $527,000, which means he actually turned just around $20,000 into more than $500,000. And usually you can't get that far just by luck. So naturally he developed a good plan for this insane YOLO. Personally, he'll be holding through earnings since consumer spending was pretty strong this quarter and he's confident that the numbers will be good. He's still expecting a new CEO announcement as well sometime before the end of the year. His plan was to take profit at $120 to trim some options, which would probably be enough to get his initial investment back, and his second take profit would be at $150. As for shares, he said he'll be holding them to the grave. Having that said, in just 3 days he completely abolished those plans. The reason? Well, the temptation of 0-day still expiry options got to him, and he sold PayPal even though it was his long-term holding, and he did his usual trading dips and shorting pumps with 7-day still expiry options. He was up 7k for the day from shorting Meta and Tesla, so he was gaining confidence in his trading abilities, and near the end of the day he made his fatal decision by buying 0-day still expiry SPY options with a striking price at $452, hoping it would tank even further so he could multiply his portfolio and make it out of this rat race. Naturally, those calls quickly became worthless. He thought SPY would crater into close, but instead it went in the other direction and mooned. And if that single loss wasn't bad enough, he decided to start revenge trading to get his losses back. He'll be posting 0-day still expiry option plays with his remaining dollars and hopes he can turn it into 7 figures. He was left with $190k and his investing trajectory has changed. It's $0 or $10 million now. I just can't, man. He literally turned just 20k into more than $500,000 by making steady gains and had an amazing plan for PayPal on which he was already up. But then just for some reason, probably greed, decided to completely YOLO with his hard-earned gains into 0-day still expiry options. It just makes me angry and sad at the same time. Unfortunately, he didn't stop and on Friday YOLO'd again on 0-day still expiry SPY puts, which he later closed for a 57k loss, bringing his account down to 137k. Next we have an insane gain by PussyBrav007, who's been on a winning streak by firstly making $105,000 in 3 months, with most of his gains coming from Coinbase, Rivian and SoFi. His Rivian options were later worth over $90,000, and his next play was on 100 Peloton call options with a striking price at $8 and expiration date on September the 15th, on which he was quickly up by around 5k. He thinks Peloton has recently significantly lowered its cost of goods sold. They also have very competent management now, so he doesn't care if Peloton is not technically oversold. Its setup is looking very much like SoFi, Coinbase and Rivian before the recent massive runs. And like SoFi, Coinbase and Rivian, Peloton is very much a company he wants to hold long term. Then he also YOLO'd with about $26,000 into Robinhood call options and then made $9,500 in one day by selling cash secured puts on AMC. And lastly, he YOLO'd with around $33,000 into 185 SunPower call options with a striking price at $10 and expiration date on March 15th, 2024, because he thinks the recent drop was an overreaction to subpar earnings. They are near pre-pandemic lows and 2016 levels. SunPower is the preeminent solar installer in the US hands down. Best solar tech, best warranties, best leases and so on. And in the past 3 months all these plays combined made him $227,781.19. Honestly, quite impressive that he's been able to make so many gains so consistently. And the best part is that he's never inherited a cent. He taught himself options trading during 2021, wagering small amounts. He started wagering large amounts in 2022 and has been doing it a little over 1.5 years now consistently. He started with exactly $100,000 of his savings and currently his options account is worth about $335,000. And last but not least, we have an insane loss by Careless Pin 285, who lost $131,600 in just a day, because on July the 24th he bought 658 RTX call options with a striking price at $96 and expiration date on July the 28th. So yeah, he lost over 100k in 16 hours on an RTX earnings play, and this is what he did wrong aside from the obvious. He made a play based on emotion as much as fact. $97 is the high end of his trading range and he thought earnings would change that. He made that thought by not looking at history, as this stock has dropped every earnings call during this war. He could not really consider buying puts as a part of him was screaming don't touch it. His other problem was that he was convinced the USA is at war. Putin says so, Fox News says so, and millions of reporters are talking about the war. But the USA is not in this war. In fact, the USA ended the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and defense spending as part of the economy is declining. What is happening is a war is going on and the USA is sending a few weapons. That is no different than any of the 100 wars in Africa. The difference is this war is on the news. And finally, he did an earnings play without looking at how the stock did compared to past earnings. If he did, he might have stayed out or bought a small number of puts, but sadly the emotional desire to dump a lot into calls was strong. Luckily in the past 3 months he's still up by 28%, around 10k, but his chart just looks insane, as he pretty much wiped out all of his gains, although later in the day he bought a few calls near the bottom with what was left over and made some of 130k losses back. And if you want to see how this trader turned 20k into $1 million and then lost it all, click on the video that just popped up. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe, and if you have any questions or recommendations, leave in the comments down below, and thanks for watching.